All set.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to wait a minute or two before we get started. Just give it another minute. Where is everyone tuning in from? I'm curious. You can respond in the chat sidebar. Awesome. San Francisco, hello. Boston, Hawaii, Vancouver, Tokyo. Hello, Tokyo. Boston, Seattle, very rainy Seattle, Minneapolis, New York. Thank you for holding these talks. Thank you for attending. Lake Tahoe, Woodinville, Montgomery, Alabama, Sunnyvale, Sonoma, amazing. Okay, I'm gonna give it maybe 30 more seconds. Hello from New Jersey, Portland, Madison, Wisconsin. Got people from all over. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Okay, I think we will get started. Hi everyone, my name is Polina Chesnakova. I am Booklarter staff, and I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in from wherever you are for today's author talk with Michelle Polzine. She is the author of Baking at the 20th Century Café. She is the owner of the 20th Century Café in San Francisco, and we're so excited to be hosting her today. Typically, we have these events at the store, along with many other events such as cooking classes, cookbook clubs, and of course with the pandemic, we've had to transition everything to online. And even though it's not perfect, it's been really neat to be able to host all sorts of authors and attendees from all over the country and if not the globe. And some of these people otherwise would have not been able to make it to the store for an author talk. So it's definitely been a silver lining. And again, I'd like to thank Michelle for being willing to talk to us about her book, and for all of you for being here to watch it. Today's talk, Michelle and I are going to be talking for about 10-15 minutes about the book. She will be demoing a recipe, a Chestnut Apple Linzer Torte, and we will be saving the last part of the author talk for your questions. So if you have any questions for Michelle during the demo, or more general questions for afterwards, please type your questions into the Q&A sidebar at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and save all of your comments and all of that for the chat sidebar. Typing them into the Q&A will help me keep organized and make sure that I can, that I'll get to everyone's questions. And of course, if you have to miss any part of the author talk, we will be putting this up on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, search Booklarter, and you'll be able to find this author talk within the next day or two. All right. Well, without further ado, I would like to welcome Michelle Polzine.
This time for real. Hi.
Yeah, hi Michelle. How are you doing?
Fine. How are you?
I'm good. Congratulations on such a lovely book.
Thank you. Thanks.
So for those who might be, unfamiliar with you and your store in the cafe, so it's based in San Francisco. How many years has it been open at this point?
We're going to be 8 in July.
8 in July. So it's been clearly, years this book has been years in the making, and it really kind of spotlights desserts from Central and Eastern Europe. So can you talk a little bit about what drew you to the desserts from that part of the world?
Um, well, uh, so I was pastry chef for a long time, and then as like a pastry chef, you work a lot and you don't get to travel very much.
Right.
Also, you don't have very much money because kitchen work, it pays in other dividends besides money.
Right.
So my brother-in-law, he, for a birthday present, it was my 40th birthday, I think, I want to say, he said, "Oh, where do you want to go?" You could go anywhere. I was like, "Oh, okay." So we planned a trip to Central Europe. I had the Rick Rogers book, house book, and it has like the little map in the back of like basically lists all the cafes, and most of them are still open. So I had my little cafe book under my arm, and we went to first we went to Dubrovnik because that was like appease the fellows, which was beautiful. And then we went to Prague, and then I went on to Vienna, and then Budapest. And so, I was like just interested in it. It wasn't like, I was like, oh, I think it would be cool to go there. It wasn't like I thought it was going to be my life mission. But then when we sat down in the cafes there, it was like, oh my God, this is a pastry chef's restaurant. Like you always feel like, especially I feel like in California more so than I also baked in the South. But in California, people are very like conscious about like their sugar intake, right? So you get sort of ditched a lot for dessert at the end of a meal. Like you're part of this meal and you're the last course, but you're also like people in New York, people in North Carolina, like they eat a lot of dessert, but people in California, some of them are a little, funny about it. Oddly enough, like the ladies come in and they want their cake in the middle of the day, which is great.
Right.
So I was like, this is a restaurant for cake. And so I was like, I came back after I went to all these places, I came back and I was like, oh my God, this is what I'm going to do. This is way better than like working in a restaurant and like making the dessert and sort of being like, sometimes it can feel like you're like the redheaded stepchild or like an afterthought, line cooks make your spatulas all stinky, all that kind of stuff that you do when you work in a restaurant. Here it's like the opposite. The ugly spatulas are for onions.
Right. Dessert's the main event.
Yeah, that's right. Desserts are the main event. So that is kind of what drew me to them. And specifically, I just really liked the flavors. They were, the textures were really interesting and different. Some of them were like familiar, but not in a way that I grew up with, but like I recognized like a lot of the flavors and the components of the desserts were a lot of what so in like a fancy restaurant, you're basically like deconstructing a cake, honestly.
Right.
Like you break it out to its components. Like you have like the ice cream component, and you have like the crispy thing, and the this thing, and the hot thing, and the cold, and here it's like all together. So it's sort of like just reformulating your ideas. But then when you start doing that, you realize you're actually, what you were doing before was deconstructing something, and you're just constructing something now. Does that make sense? Am I being too weird?
So can you talk a little bit more about kind of what makes, Central Eastern European desserts Central and Eastern European, like maybe some components or ingredients that you find a lot, or looking through the book, obviously there's lots of cakes, but there's also strudels and tarts. And can you talk a little bit about the variety and what sets them apart from desserts from other parts of the world?
I think that they're sort of intense and concentrated.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's, obviously they use more preserves because it's colder, so you don't have like this abundance of fresh fruit. But it's also like, it's not just about preserving, it's also about like intensifying. Like they have like lekvar, where it's like you're really like cooking something down very, 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 very far and making it really concentrated. And that it's not like you're just putting jam in a cake. It's like you're making this like apricot lekvar or like cherry lekvar, and you're making it very strong. And there's lots of ground nuts. Like it's not like this sort of like fluffy kind of thing. These fluffy nothings. They're like very like, it feels very serious. Does that seem like weird to call food like? No. I mean, serious, like not in a stuffy kind of fake intellectual way, like serious in a way of like people who've had a lot of shit happen.
Well, I was about to say, I feel like the people themselves can be very serious, and the life there has been, not always rainbows and unicorns and sunshine. So kind of reflects in their desserts to be kind of more elegant and sophisticated. And
yeah, well, I mean, and also the Habsburg Empire, so
right,
like a royal tradition.
Yeah,
but it is like a lot of nuts, a lot of like ground nuts, a lot of ground poppy seeds, like things. I feel like that was the most distinctive thing, was poppy seed, like poppy seed ice cream.
Right. Amazing. And then, yeah, like you said, lots of preserves, just because it's cold for most of the year, and preserving is such a big part of their cultures, and finding ways to use that in the desserts. And of course, I think the first time that you and your desserts kind of, entered my radar was when Samin, well, actually, even before Samin Nosrat wrote about your honey cake, a friend of mine who's a baker, I feel like your bakery is kind of one of those bakeries that bakers and pastry chefs travel to, specifically, you travel to San Francisco and you have to go to 20th Century Cafe, and you have to have the Russian honey cake called Medavik. And Samin Nosrat wrote about it for the New York Times, and it's the cover photo. I know you're not that's not the recipe you're demoing, but can you talk a little bit about how when you had the honey cake for the first time, and kind of that your journey of creating your ideal Medavik?
Yes. That first time I had it was in Prague.
Mm-hmm.
And the second time I had it was in Prague also. It was not in Vienna, the cafes in Vienna or Budapest. I didn't see it in any of the Rick Rogers list. Mm-hmm. Any of the 3 times I've been, I never saw it there. And, it was really good. It was definitely the best thing I had in Prague, but I wasn't like thinking it was the best thing that I had on my trip. It just was like, oh, this is really good, and I was just I only went to Prague once. And it's like, this is good. I really like this. And then we had another place. I'm like, oh, this is good. It's not as good as the other place did it, but it's still like the same thing. And then I kind of didn't really think about it, to be honest. And it wasn't until, it wasn't that long before I opened, and my husband brought me a piece of Medovik there's a Russian bakery in the avenues here. Mm-hmm. And he brought me a piece of it, and I was like, oh, this is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. And then I was like, let's go out there. And so then we rode our bikes again and got some more. And then I was like, wow, what is this? I like kind of couldn't figure. It was kind of a little graham crackery tasting. Right. It was all like soft and nice. I don't know. It was just so good. And then I started kind of thinking about it a lot. Like I hadn't really thought about it it was like took a backseat in the brain for almost 2 years. Mm-hmm. And then for whatever reason, it went to the front, and it like became this thing that I had to figure it out. And the sucky thing was like, there was nothing. Like I looked in, the first place I look is like Rick Ryder's book, because it's in English.
Yeah.
And I know all the recipes work. There's no. Yeah. And then I start digging through, like I have a ton of vintage books that I've gotten from Omnivore. Mm-hmm. Like not in there. I mean, it's possible it was in one of the ones with no pictures and no English.
Right.
Don't think so. I just couldn't find it anywhere. And then So then I think it was like the not being able to find it made me a little more even crazy about it and like having to do it. So then I was like searching on the internet and I couldn't find anything. And the thing I found was like so bad that I just like started from there.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was like, oh, it's so sweet, yuck. And so I like tried one with sour cream and I don't really like that. Like sometimes it's weird. Like sometimes if you try to use a sour ingredient to make something not sweet, it actually just makes it more sweet in a weird way. Like it doesn't necessarily cancel, there's not necessarily a canceling out.
Right.
It's not a given. So then I was like, what the am I gonna do? And I was like, I'm gonna burn the honey. So then I started burning, I burned the honey and that was like something and something, but the texture was still really crappy and I was really mad. And I like put it in the fridge and then I got up like in the middle of the night like I do.
Mm.
I'm not a sleeper. And I like tasted it and I was like, hold on. And so it was softer.
Right.
And
it kind of has like an ice box texture to it. Like you can't just put it together and eat it. You have to let it sit.
No, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
I knew.
If I had known you, I would have given you my family's recipe. It tells you all the secrets that you probably found out for yourself.
On my own. Yes, I know. I'm sure it does. Well, I had to learn the hard way because my friend Cal says if there's a harder way to do it, you'll figure it out. So yeah, then I burned the honey, let it sit overnight. I saw the dulce de leche thing like in a video. It was actually a Armenian cake called Miracle Cake. And I saw like the guy was like talking about the cake and in the background the ladies are making it and I saw them opening a can and it was like brown inside. I was like, I know what that is.
Yeah.
And I added the dulce de leche and then that was then it was just like fine tuning it at that point.
Yeah. Amazing. Did you know when you made it and put it on your menu that it was going to be the cake that you kind of became famous for?
No, I knew it was a hit for sure. Like it was like it hit so many kind of weird notes because you can't. It's like very pleasing, but it's also difficult to identify all the flavor components because the caramelized honey and the dulce de leche add like a lot of very kind of interesting layers to it. It's like it's kind of chocolatey, it's kind of coffee-y, it's kind of like licoricey. What is in this thing? You know, it's like you can't really just put your finger on it. And I think that makes people want to eat it a lot of times because it's not like super obvious. But no, I didn't know that.
And today, you are making. I was reading about the recipe, and you said it was the recipe that you love to bring to Thanksgiving meals.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about the torte and your take on it and how you make it and jump right into your demo?
Yeah. So, Linzer Torte is, people argue about what's in it. Always ground nuts. People argue about what's nuts. Some people, it has spices usually, usually cinnamon. I mean, always cinnamon. Lemon zest, often cloves, sometimes cocoa. There's fights about cocoa. I used, in the Linzer Torte, in the book, I believe it's almonds, lemon zest, cinnamon, I think cocoa. I like to use, it doesn't matter like chemically, even though usually it does, but it's such a small amount of cocoa. You can use alkalized or non-alkalized cocoa. I prefer to use non-alkalized cocoa because it just adds a little, the chestnut flour is very sweet. So it kind of gets a little bit acidity in there.
Yeah.
It's also kind of nice because it's a lighter color. So it doesn't, because you can see like the finished, I already baked one off.
Ooh, there's a picture in the book.
There's a picture in the book, and then I have this one. Ow.
Beautiful.
I made one because I thought you would want to see a finished one. It got a little dark because I was trying to shilly-shally the honey cake layers and do this at the same time, which is so wrong. It's the wrong temperature, people. Don't do it. Follow the recipe. Anyway, so this one has, so I decided to make kind of an alternate version. I really like apple and chestnuts together. It felt very like holiday-y. I feel like actual chestnuts sometimes are, I mean, they're always a lot of work and sometimes they don't really kind of, there's not a big payoff. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you give yourself, like roasting them, get cuts, shelling, everything, and then you're like, what the yeah. So chestnut
Make
flour.
it easier on yourself.
The chestnut flour. So I decided to, instead of having the filling be chestnutty, have the pastry be chestnutty. And chestnut flour is very dense. I thought I could do like a straight swap for like the nuts in there. I thought it would be like really weak without the flour, but in fact it was too strong, and I actually had to add more butter and baking powder to lighten it up, because I think that it's milled so finely, it's very dense.
So
Which is
interesting.
why you can make pasta
And
with
probably
it.
more liquid since it doesn't have any gluten in it.
I don't know. It's pretty dry. I didn't add any more liquid, just more butter.
Wow.
Added butter and baking powder. That was kind of like the big shocking change, and less sugar.
And I noticed too, which I thought was interesting, is that you add hard-boiled egg yolks. Like I've definitely added just, regular egg yolks to tart dough, but you add hard-boiled egg yolks. Why
The
is that?
hard-boiled egg yolks, that is actually, I've seen that in a lot of recipes, but the first recipe I saw it in was many years ago. The great goddess of baking, Nancy Silverton, it's in her Linzer dough. And that was the first time I'd seen that. And I was like, whoa, what's that? That's weird. But I think what it does is, I mean, I'm no Harold McGee, but it's keeps the batter from, like, it helps keep it from spreading. Soft.
Yeah. Interesting.
And it makes it like I don't blind bake this at all. You like just fill it with all the things and bake it kind of for a long time.
And it's amazing that it keeps its shape too. And I guess that's probably for the egg yolks, because of the egg yolks.
I'm guessing.
Baking is so so fascinating.
Don't eat when you need them.
It's magic.
Maybe. Okay. Should I start?
Yes, and also before you start, we just copy and pasted a link to the recipe to the torte in the chat sidebar. So for those who don't have the book yet but want to try making the torte, we shared the recipe in the chat sidebar. You could follow the link to find that. All right.
Remember, there's no other gift for the holidays. Anyway, in this book. Okay, I go. So this is chestnut flour, and we passed it through a tammy. I tried to do a cheat on it the other day by sifting it in the Robocoop, and I still had lumps. So you can't cheat. I love a cheat, but it was not possible. So this is chestnut flour, and this is, let's see, this looks like baking powder. Let's guess. And this is my cocoa. So this is the natural cocoa. So it's much lighter in color. It's the action of the whatever the hell they Dutch it with.
Yeah, I don't know.
Soda thing. They make it like so they put a base in it so it neutralizes the acid, but I like the acid. And then cinnamon. And then it says that you're supposed to sift it together with all this, but I wanted to show the ingredients. So I'm gonna kind of do a little, I'm gonna kind of do a little whiskey sift. But I promise that this chestnut flour has been tammied. April, who's standing on the side, did it her own self with her 2 hands and a little dough scraper. So, here we go.
That smells so good.
Okay, so that's good enough for government work. And then I'm gonna put salt in with my butter, which is in this bowl. You can do it by hand.
And it's just room temperature butter?
Just room temperature butter. I'll put my lemon zest. That's what I'm supposed to do. I think so. And then my butter's pretty soft. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start putting, if it weren't totally soft, I might like paddle it for a minute if we're still a little cool, but it's pretty soft. So I'm gonna put my sugar. Okay.
And if anyone has questions about this process while Michelle's demoing, please type them into the Q&A and I can not answer them, read them out loud.
Plug in the mixer, it works so much better. Okay. So, like many of you, you've probably lost the slow gears on your KitchenAid if it's old. Sorry. So normally, like if you had the lower gears, it'd be better to do it a little bit slower. So when I add the chestnut flour, it's going to probably be slightly exciting and go poof everywhere.
And Michelle, Arlene, our audience member Arlene asks, where does one buy chestnut flour?
I got mine at Rainbow Grocery.
Okay.
So just a co-op here. Probably like if you have like a fancy dancy grocery store, they would have it. I put a source in the book for mail ordery stuff if you can't find it. You know, a lot of people are doing mail order anyway because of the fun with COVID. So, I wanted to mention that briefly here. Speaking of, so the original recipe for this makes a really big Linzer torte because it was like meant to bring to Thanksgiving where you would have all these. Hey. We're not really doing that now. And I thought like, well, Jonathan Kaufman actually did an adapted version that was a little bit smaller for the Wall Street Journal, which you could do. But also what you can do is just like hold back some of the dough, like use a smaller pan, which is what I'm doing here. It's like calls for 12 inch. I think this is like a 10 or 11 inch. And you can save the dough and make cookies with it. Just cookies. So it's, you don't like have to make this. I mean, the Linzer torte's really good and it will get eaten, but I would just say for Thanksgiving, I mean, I think we're not really supposed to, are we not supposed to do Thanksgiving this year? Is Thanksgiving canceled?
Depends on who you're asking, but
I don't know. But anyway, in case Thanksgiving's canceled, you can just make a little bit smaller one. It's fine. It like won't, I mean, just you can make the dough and then like freeze some of the dough for later.
Yeah. And you said cookies, so you kind of can probably make some of that, can you use the extra filling to like make Linzer cookies?
Yeah, you can just roll out. You want to, the Linzer filling, okay, so the apple butter that you're using for the Linzer filling is like a little looser than, straight up apple butter. So if you were like popping it out, if you canned a bunch of apple butter and you're popping it out of a jar, just add a little bit of liquid because you want to imagine it's going to bake. And it's like not the end of the world if it ends up like pretty firm, but it's kind of nice if it's creamy. Yeah. Like a nice contrast if it's a little bit creamy. So, but like I said, it's not the end of the world if you don't do that, but that is what I did. So I'm nice and floofy. I should probably show. Oh, so floofy. Floof, floof. Oh, that's chestnut flour. Hey, floof, floof. Look at the floofy goodness. So floof. Amazing. That look
very floofy.
Yay, floofy. So dun, 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 dun.
And for those who are in Seattle, Emily, one of our readers, says that De Laurentiis at the Pike Place Market carries chestnut flour.
Here's my sieved egg yolks, also floofy.
Cool.
Okay, so then.
And what brand of chestnut flour were you using?
This is, I don't want to say it. It's like it's Italian. Calaris. Whoa. Is that in reverse?
No, it's not actually.
Oh, whoa, it is for me. Dun, 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 dun. This is the one I've always used.
Thank you.
Back in the olden days when I worked at Italian restaurants in it. Okay, so I'm going to do this just so this is incorporated. I'm going to double check and make sure I'm following the recipe. Paddle, cream butter, sugar, egg yolks, water, talent, fluffy about 3 minutes dry ingredients and 2 additions. Okay. How do I want to do this? I'm going to do this in the way that I hope will be the least crazy for spazzing out. It's kind of a lot of dough for a KitchenAid. I mean, it doesn't have to work hard, but it's a like, can be a little explosive. So I'm just gonna pretend I'm the machine with my low speed, and I'm just kind of like, just using the paddle. I do this a lot if I don't want to mix something very much, but the shape of the paddle helps incorporate it more than like a spatula, say, for example. So I'm just doing it, I'm incorporating it not all the way, but until it looks like that. So it's not gonna, so I don't want to mix the hell out of it, but to like
Right.
to add more. And then I'll add the rest.
And is there any, do you have to be mindful of not over mixing here? I mean, usually with gluten, you know.
Good to be mindful of it just because it can get kind of dense and you don't want to like, you got your butter all nice and creamy and floofy and you don't want to kind of wreck all that.
Right.
But it's also not fussy like something with gluten. And in fact, the even though the regular Linzer Torte also has gluten, it's there's so much butter and like this one has more butter than chestnut flour, like the ratio wise, if that gives you any idea. So there's a lot of good stuff. And then the other one, there's nut, ground like almond meal and flour and a ton of butter also. But I'm just gonna actually put it on here now that I think it's probably not gonna explode everywhere, although I could be wrong.
And could you, if you didn't have a KitchenAid, could you mix it by hand?
Yeah, you can mix by hand or you can use one of those little like old school ones, or you can, I had to do some stuff at home. And I did like everything's at work. And I just was like, crap, all I have is this wooden spoon. I guess that's how I'm making this.
Right.
I mean, you really can, you just have to beat the crap out of it. And
I mean, the European bakers weren't using KitchenAid mixers for centuries, right? We're kind of spoiled.
Yes. Try making bagels without a mixer though. Ugh. God help us. Okay, so then I'm just gonna. So you can chill this, or you can actually go right away.
Dough's so much darker.
Yeah, it's really dark, which is kind of can make it a little bit tricky when you're baking because you're like, is it burning?
Right.
So where's it gonna go? Going on frame. Okay. So I'm gonna put part of the dough in. I'm just kind of finishing it by hand. It's really stiff. It's like stiff. I'm gonna put some of it. I have my buttered pan. I butter it really well. Like you kind of want to make sure you take the time and get the butter in all the little flutes.
Yeah.
And I kind of do that by I smear it all around, and then I kind of take my finger and individually scoop it out. So you get, it doesn't take that long. Just go fast. You don't have to it's not precise or anything. You just go. So I'm gonna put part of this in plastic wrap because the plastic wrap actually helps you get the dough into the pan. And
so is this the sort of dough that you kind of just put in your pan and kind of press it down, or do you roll it out first and then transfer it?
And the reason you could do the press down thing, but I think what happens is you end up displacing the butter and then it sticks. So theoretically you could do that, but over the top, I made a dough earlier that's chilled. So I'm gonna use that for the top, but for the bottom, I can use this one. So I'm just putting cling film on the bottom and cling film on the top. If you have those kind of cool acetate sheets, you can use them. You can use
parchment paper.
You can use parchment paper, but there's a little shimmying fun that the plastic wrap helps you with that the parchment paper is a little bit harder. So, but it is totally fine to use parchment paper. The thing you want to remember is if you are gonna add flour to roll this out and you're making it for your friends who are have a gluten problem, make sure you don't accidentally just kind of space out and grab the regular flour.
Right.
Use the flour to roll it out. I've done that before to myself. Okay, so then I'm going to rolling pin in town, and it's kind of like when you're rolling things out in plastic wrap. It's kind of the same principle as on the table. It's you want to make sure you're kind of like how you would lift the dough. You want to make sure you're lifting the plastic wrap off the dough. You know how you lift the dough and put the flour underneath and reposition it so it doesn't stick to the table. Same deal. Boink, flip it upside down. And
And at what point you said, you know, if it was sticking a lot, you would add more flour. Would you add it at this point or after?
I mean, I don't need to add it because I'm rolling in plastic wrap.
Right. Okay. Oh, if you were to roll it just without plastic.
Yes, rolling it out with plastic wrap. If you didn't have plastic wrap or parchment paper or anything. I don't know how you got chestnut flour if you couldn't get those things, but that's your affair.
And if someone doesn't have a fluted tart pan, could they use just like a cake pan, like a springform pan?
The sides are too tall. That's the problem. They could use like a flan ring.
Okay.
Work on the pan. But you want something that's not too tall. This is going to be, you want like a shorty guy. So, I mean, not impossible, but like you would have to put a lot more filling in it to get the lattice to lay on it. And then it would take, I don't know, it might like, no, you can't.
Okay.
No. Go buy a tart pan. Ask for one for Christmas. It's coming up. Okay. You don't have to have that much special stuff. You need like a rolling pin and you need a little offset spatula, but you need to have the pan.
That would make a good Christmas gift. You get your book with the tart pan, some chestnut flour.
And then I think I made this like for the really big Linzer torte, so I'm gonna have to cut some of the dough away. But I'm rolling it to, it's too thick. Maybe like a 1/4 inch. So it's thicker than a regular tart dough for sure. Watching me roll in the hay. Roll. Okay, so I think we're good. Okay, so then what you do is, if you need to stop and do some other thing in your life while you're making this, you can chill this dough, but make sure you bring it to room temperature so it's like pliable before you try to put it in your hand. Just let it temp up. So I'm gonna take the top sheet of plastic wrap off, and then I have this, my buttered pan. Then I'm just gonna kind of take it, and the dough's really soft, and flip it upside down. And so I'm using the plastic wrap basically to give it structure.
Can you move it a little bit? Yeah.
I'm moving. I just realized that, sorry. It's my first day. So then I'm just pushing it. Can you see that? I'm using it to kind of shimmy it into the corners. Don't get the plastic wrap in there. And
at this point, are you trying to move fairly quickly?
Yeah.
Before the butter gets too soft.
Yeah, but it's not, I mean, I figure you're making this in the winter, it's probably not going to be like super critical.
Right.
If you're trying to do this in the summer, yes. But otherwise it's like not that crazy. And then they have, since this is, I just made this, it's pretty sticky. You can see it like sticking to the plastic wrap. And then, so you've got kind of like this situation here. And then I'm gonna go around the edge. Oh yeah, this is really soft. So ideally I'd want to chill this before building it. I'm just gonna go crazy, and then April's gonna go home and bake it at her house.
Lucky April.
Yay, April, because I don't want to, I was like, oh God, I don't want to stay till like 8 o'clock waiting for this thing to bake. I don't want to carry it on my bicycle because it'll get all messed up. So April's family's gonna have Linzer torte for dinner tonight. Okay, and then I'm just kind of taking the excess and making it like so it's even. It's really soft. So I mean, you can see the dough is like super soft. I have both hands dirty now. That's perfect. And then I'm just like flattening this top edge, and then making sure it's like even. So the bottom part, I would say that the sides are going to be about twice as thick as the bottom.
Okay.
That's about right.
Why is that?
I don't know, because that makes it good.
Just looks Looks better
Well,
that way.
you made the dough, the bottom and the sides the same. Like it's just Linzer torts are traditionally, it's not like a tart, right? It's like more dough.
Right.
Like more, you don't want like just a jam tart. You want more dough. You want a lot of dough, but you don't want it on the bottom because it won't bake through. I mean, it's pretty thick on the bottom.
Right.
Sides are like, I would say the sides are like about, I need to go out of frame and stick myself. The sides are like a little better than a half inch thick. The bottom's about a quarter inch. Like that. There's that food pastry little thing.
And I'm sure obviously all of this is in your recipe too.
Yeah. Put it in there, make the sides thicker, da da da. And okay, so now so this has been chilled. It gets a little darker when it sits in the fridge. So there's a crazy thing. I'm gonna de-dough.
Okay. And again, if anyone has questions for Michelle about the process or just about the book or cafe in general, just feel free to type them into the Q&A. And if you have any comments that you want to share with everyone in the chat, make sure you click to panelists and attendees. Otherwise, they're just going to go to me.
Okay. So here's the dough rolled out and chilled. This you have to make sure you chill this one first.
And this is for the lattice topping, right?
So this is, I rolled this out in parchment. And then, so what you kind of want to do is this thing, the flip. So I've got it and it's like really stuck on there. And you don't, the dough is super, super delicate. So you can't just like peel it off the parchment paper. So what you want to do is go peel off the parchment paper while it's whole. And flip it over and peel it off the other side. And then you want to make the lattice. Okay, and I just want to make sure it's going to go the length. Yes. Okay. And then go in and cut my little lattice. You should have a ruler for this, but I left it downstairs, so I'm just going to eyeball it, and they're going to be kind of wonky. But it helps if you use a ruler when you're cutting the lattice. This is really soft, so this is going to be pretty funny to watch me try to put it on this chart. Remember, chill. Okay. Does anyone have any exciting questions for me while I'm like doing this little?
Yeah. So Emily asks, how has COVID-19 affected the cafe?
Well, when you used to get to come and it gets a little clogged up. When you used to get to come inside and eat cake off beautiful china and listen to live music and have really nice atmosphere, you don't get to have any of that anymore. What you get to do now is take your cake home in a box and have it at your house.
Not a bad deal either. Not the same though.
Not the same. My one sort of thing that I figured out is like, it saved me from losing my mind was the picnic baskets. So I went and crazy and got a bunch of vintage picnic baskets. And we packed those. Oh, wow, this gets like clogged up partway when your dough's not chilled. There's all kinds of things that are wrong with not having your dough chilled. Where's that other one? Which? Hey, magic. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so vintage, there's like, we pack in china and linens and silverware, and then you get a vintage picnic basket. So that's like the one kind of thing that I've been able to do that makes me feel not like everything is terrible and box. Cause I mean, I hated doing to go, like, even though like, my neighbor Evan's like, you gotta do to go, Michelle, because he's like has a rotisserie, and I was like, I hate it though. And he's like, you make money, and I was like, money's.
I feel like it's not very in the spirit of European cafe houses.
Is it? This is gonna be really hard. Okay, I'm gonna do my best. So this dough is basically room temperature right now, so this could be a little gruesome. So
and you're brushing it with egg wash?
Brushing it with egg wash. And then my lovely apple butter. There. And another utensil. Ooh, I'm gonna take this little spatula that I got from Adam Marca. And I'm gonna do this. Like, so I have my apple butter, and it's a little bit looser than, so it's about like thick applesauce.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm gonna put, so this is a little bit smaller tart, so I figured out today, I did my tester, it's like 3 cups instead of 4 with the apple butter. It's about right. You wanna fill it so it's like a little below the ledge. Wait. Oh my god, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. So soft. Wait, I should probably show you this before I do this. So like this bowl. So you see there's like a got like, I don't know, like it's like a 1/4 inch from the top. Something like that. I mean, you could put more jam in it. It's not the end of the, I mean, it's like, if you like it, just do it. But the more
Are you selling this tart at the cafe right now?
not right now, but I was thinking about doing something like this for Thanksgiving, but I don't have that many of these pans. It seems like a thing, that's like a thing you have to think about for when you're for a restaurant. So if they break when you're putting them on, you can just stick them together. Can't really tell. Can you see what I'm doing? Should I switch?
We can see it.
You're good?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just like lifting them as carefully as I can. Oh, it's so soft.
So Kelly writes, not a question, but I love how Michelle set expectations in her book introduction. Very excited to take time to make her amazing desserts. Also love dining at her cafe and how it makes me feel. Totally get not wanting to do takeout.
Thank you. And then I kind of do, I do like, I mean, you can do like a squares, or you can do like, I like diamonds.
And you're not weaving this lattice, right? Because it's so sticky.
Yeah, you don't need to. It looks plenty fancy. I like, diamonds are a girl's best friend, so I'm doing diamonds.
And what kind of apples do you use in the apple butter? Does it matter?
Apple butter was, I mean, you can use whatever you want, but this one I think was like some burgundy apples from Devoto. He's my apple farmer, so I just use whatever he has at the moment. But this one was like a mixture of burgundy and some, I had some like leftover Grabensteins and some, what else did I have in there? I think I had some Belle de Boss Coupe or something. Like I just used like whatever I had like little scribblings of.
Because yeah, at the end of the day, you're just kind of cooking it all down, right? And you can play around with it.
It's cool if you can score like a rosy apple, like a rosy colored one. It makes the apple butter a little bit pinker, which is, you know, nice. You could also throw like a quince in there to make it pinker. You can cheat, no problem with making things pinker. You could even cheat. I think there's like, you could even throw like a little splash of pomegranate juice in there.
A little pop of color.
Yeah.
So Ingrid asks, I love poppy seed. Could I make a Linzer torte with a thin layer of jam on bottom, then add poppy seed filling on top of the jam?
I would say that yes and no. Put the poppy seed layer on the bottom because it's drier. So it'll actually, and then put a nice soft jam on top. That's a great idea. Am I allowed to do that? Do I get to steal your idea? Does that? It's a really good idea. It's kind of like the flodney. So you want to put like the orders that we put the different layers in there. It's really important. Like I did a lot of switching around to get like how you get it to bake upright. So anyway, I did it and it was like soft and terrible and it still came out fine.
Beautiful.
Hooray.
Perfect.
You sprinkle it with sugar if you want to. I mean, I say like demerara sugar, turbinado sugar, but it's like not necessary. I don't know. I think it looks nice when it comes out of the oven to do a little powdered sugar on it. And it's cool because
Yeah.
You can't see the powdered sugar in the jam parts, but you can see it on the crust.
In the book.
It just does that magically. You don't have to do anything. It just does it.
Lena asks, when I think Linzer, I think of raspberry, even though I think Linzer refers to the buttery torte itself with filling. Michelle, have you ever tried your Linzer torte with that raspberry filling that makes a traditional Linzer cookie?
I think well, I don't want to be argumentative, but when I was reading a lot about Austrian pastries, like someone was really mad, like an Austrian pastry chef was really mad about the raspberry thing. And he insisted that it's red currant.
Oh.
Yeah, anyway, and I just remember that like, geez, he was so mad, like scary. So I've been a little bit afraid, although I did use raspberry jam in the Linzer Ogg, and I felt like that was okay. I mean, we don't really get red currants here, but I would say if you live someplace where you get red currants, that's what you want to make for your Linzer torte.
Yeah, and you do have a faux red currant jam in the book.
Yep.
And what do you use to make that?
Cranberry and pomegranate. Mm-hmm. And it is like crazy how it actually does taste like red currant.
Delicious.
Yeah.
So now at this point you would just bake it, right? You don't have to chill it or anything.
No, that's it. You can throw it right in there and bake it. You want to bake it on the low side in the oven because, you know, we didn't blind bake the crust, and you want to make sure you get the bottom layer baked through. When I do mine, I actually I bake it part of the time on the deck of the oven because I have like these guys.
That's cool.
Yeah, that one. So I have like little racks in there.
Mm-hmm.
You can bake it on the deck, like the old timey baker's oven. So I do it like part of the time on the deck, like I do all my tarts, and then this one part of the time on the rack. Give it the rack.
It's beautiful. I wish I was April and getting to bake it at home for dinner.
Yeah, and this is part of the recipe. This is once the crust sets, I usually need to make one of these.
Mm. That's just made with foil, right?
This is made with foil. So I just like took like, oh my god, I'm so schmutzy. I take the piece like a square, and then you kind of fold it in like a snowflake. There's a lot of things you do with snowflakes in this book. It's crafty. So you fold in half of quarters and then like 6, so it's like a little triangle. And then I kind of take the triangle and hold it up to the center of the tart, and then hold the edge, and then you rip it out so that it covers the crust. And then, so like this is just done, like I didn't use scissors or anything. I just ripped the foil, and then I like made the thing so that when it set, then I put it on the outside. I mean, they have like a fancy pie guard that you can buy. But
right. And that just keeps it from over browning, right?
Yeah, because the edge that does get really dark and the lattice stays kind of pale. No good. That's part of like when we put the egg wash on there, just to kind of attract like the color to it.
Yeah.
Help it bake more so it looks more even.
Lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that recipe.
Yeah. Did I go too fast?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, good.
Arlene asks, can you use persimmons, like fuyu persimmons instead of apples?
I've never made fuyu persimmon butter before, but I think you could use anything that was like similar. Can you cook fuyus? Or do they get weird?
I know you could with like hachia persimmons.
I'm a eat a persimmon raw kind of person. Like I actually have a hachia persimmon tree in my yard, and I think the best way to eat them is to get them ripe and cut it in half and get a spoon.
Right.
Scoop it out.
Their flavor is so delicate.
Yeah, and the texture is really awesome too. It's like a jelly.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's kind of hard to improve on that.
Yeah. So we have more questions. We've got a few more minutes. Someone says, I really love your look. At what age did you start dressing this way? And what are your favorite places to find your pretty dresses and accessories? I feel like this question reminds me of your introduction because I feel like you make that connection between
Oh yeah.
dressing up and going to the cafes?
Um, I don't know. I started in high school, like when I was 14, because of economics and also punk rock. So just you shop in thrift stores for those reasons. Because babysitting money doesn't go that far. And but it does at the Goodwill. And so yeah, that's, and I mean my hero was like Exene Cervenka, right? So she wore all those really cool like 40s rayon dresses and all these big light bracelets, which by the time I started, you know, whatever that was in like 1984, things were already starting to get kind of expensive. And then like here, like on the West Coast, but then on the East Coast, things were still like, when I lived in North Carolina, I worked at a thrift shop and it was super cheap. Like I would find really like 40s rayon dresses for $5 and stuff, which you don't find that anymore after eBay.
Yeah.
It's all over. But luckily I'm a big hoarder, so I have tons of stuff from then. Hooray! Oh, but my favorite place to shop now is my friend's store. It's like, I don't know if you've been to the shop, but Teresa that works here with the, well, she also has bangs. I have them, but she also has them. Her boyfriend has a store called Relic Vintage. And I just did a lot of trade there because I cleaned out, I'm such a hoarder, but I clean things out because I can't wear wool anymore. It makes me itchy. So I traded in all this wool. I have all these like beautiful, so if you like wool, go now and you're my size. There's tons of 40s and 50s like wool sets, but I traded them in there. So I just kind of cycle it through.
Yeah. And you clearly have a, you know, distinct style in your clothes and also your pastries. How did you design your cafe? Because I've only heard of it. I haven't been to it. And, you know, maybe you could also talk a little bit about, obviously, you know, the cafe houses in Europe, in Central Europe, are much different from, you know, the coffee house, you know, coffee shops here. Did you try to, you know, emulate your bakery?
Oh my God, I totally tried to copy it as much as I could. Down to like finding a corner location, like that was really important to me. And the first time I went to Europe, like it wasn't part of my plan to do this. So I didn't really, I mean, I observed things. I'm an observer. But I didn't like take pictures or necessarily like explicitly, I wasn't like looking at design and stuff. And the second time I went, I took tons of pictures and was really looking at design stuff. And I like, you know, wanted mirrors on the walls and like wanted these certain like light fixtures. And I just spent a lot of time searching for things. I really wanted like velvet upholstery, but like all the modern velvet that I tested was like not very durable.
Mm-hmm.
So then we ended up splurging on mohair, because like you can do all kinds of stuff to mohair and it just comes out. Like we tested everything, like at a party at my house, we were like just basically dumping things on like upholstery samples. Oil, coffee, butter, chocolate, everything. And it's like, it totally came out of mohair. So we're like, fine, it's worth it. And it's the banquettes, even though you can't sit on them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We do for family meal. And sometimes when we're packing up your boxes, they sit over there. So they get to enjoy it, even if you don't. And then, yeah, light fixtures are from, I have some original ones that are from the teens. And then some copies. I don't know if you can see them. Right here, look. Hope this doesn't mess everything up. Where are you? Light fixtures. Take a little tour. You can't really see them because they're so glowy. But there's some light fixtures. And then whoop, whoop, whoop. You see the ones over there. Those are the original ones, sconces. And then I copied, did I totally mess it up as my head cut off now? There's a restaurant in Vienna that I really love called Zum Schwarzen Kamel. And I totally copied their floor, like exactly. Like I took a bunch of pictures of it.
What does the floor look like?
It's like real linoleum,
like
the old stuff. And it's green and black. It's like black on the edge and then green in the middle. It's got a little inlaid strip that I totally stole from this restaurant.
Yeah. And you also mentioned live music, because I remember when I was in Budapest and I went to some coffee house and there was a a piano in it, and someone was playing, and it was like that was one of the most memorable parts of experiencing that cafe house. And you said that pre-COVID you used to have live music.
Yeah, on Saturdays and Sundays, we'd have Nick on Saturday, Nick Rossi. He's a jazz guitar person. And then Rob Reich, not the other Rob, the my accordion playing Rob Reich on Sundays. That's
Wow.
what we did every week. It was so good. And sometimes Nick would bring like a whole band. If someone was coming through town, it would be like a little. If I really needed an extra, psychological boost, basically, we get the whole band because it helps a lot.
Yeah.
Music can hear it.
Sounds amazing.
It's good.
Well, I feel like between the demo and talking about the cafe houses and just seeing a little bit about your cafe, I think you've inspired wanderlust in all of us. And I think
Oh no, I'm sorry.
one day we can all get to San Francisco, for those who aren't there, and visit you and have some of your amazing pastries.
Yeah, but now you can make them at home.
And now you can make them at home. And if you haven't gotten your copy yet, we are selling signed copies at Booklarder. The link to the website is in our chat at the top. We could also just go to booklarder.com and look up Michelle's beautiful book. And I think it'd be a great gift for the holidays. Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time to demo that tour and to talk to us. We're really excited to have you, and we're excited to bake from it.
Yay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you for everyone who tuned in. I hope everyone has a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Goodbye.